Today's live IELTS class. In this class, we are focusing on the listening section, specifically parts 3 and 4 of the listening section. Hi, Hikmatillo Suma. Good to see many students in class already. Again, these lessons are brought to you by our world-class online preparation courses, IELTS for the general version of the test, and for the academic, check us out at aehelp.com. I'll quickly show you those websites. They look like this. We'll be using this one, the academic. To get our premium package, go to aehelp.com and click that big red button. For the general, go to IELTShelp.com and click that big red button to get those materials. Hi, Suma. Hi, Navjeet. Hi, Carolina. Good to see many more students coming in on time. Again, make sure to download our app, Academic IELTS Help, from your Android and iOS app stores. If you have questions, you can send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com. If you want to get paperback versions of our exams, you can do that. Go to Amazon, search for AE Helps Academic IELTS or GE Helps General IELTS, and you'll find our books. Okay, students, so without further ado, we will get into our listening exam. For those of you who have our books, this is book number 1, the third exam, labeled Test 2, because the first one's a review test. So this is on the website. This is CD3, track 3, okay? So students, please do not write your answers in the chat. Give everybody a fair chance. Hi, Eugen. Love those emojis, panda wave and cat. Don't write your answers in the chat. Give everybody a fair chance to answer on their own. We will go through the questions and answers after the audio. Okay? So, here we go with the audio in just a moment here. All right, so again, logging in to my online student account. If you have our app, you can also access the audio from there. Students, I'm using a speaker, so if it's quiet on your side, turn up the volume, use a headset. Okay, of course, if you have this audio, it's going to be much higher quality, directly played from the website. So, audio CDs, CD3. Track number 3, ready, set, here we go.
Now turn to section 3. Take some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Listening section 3. You will hear a public forum discussion between the moderator and 2 contributors, Dr. Philip McPhee and Dr. Ron Tatum, both political scientists at the local university, talking about the nature of taxes in society. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
First of all, I would like to thank Dr. McPhee and Dr. Tatum for taking time out of their busy lives to spend this evening with us.
Thank you for having us.
Dr. McPhee, could you give us a little bit of the history of taxation?
Certainly. Taxes have been around almost as long as civilization itself. There are records of taxes being collected by Egyptian pharaohs approximately 5,000 years ago. It was customary to give 20% of your production to the pharaoh, and those who evaded taxes were severely punished.
Dr. Tatham, what are the reasons for taxes?
Well, there are essentially three major reasons for taxes. The first and most obvious reason is revenue. Governments need money, and taxes fulfill this need. The government then spends this tax revenue on investments that are good for society, such as healthcare, schools and roads. Funding the army would fall under this category as well. The second reason for taxation is for the redistribution of wealth. In simpler terms, this means taking money from the rich and giving it to the poor. Many societies do this out of a belief that it is the responsibility of the government to look after the poor people in society. I'll let Dr. McPhee talk about the final reason for taxation, called repricing.
Thank you, Dr. Tatham. Yes, the third main reason for taxation is called repricing, and by this we mean changing the price of a product to a different, generally higher price. This may sound quite strange, but if you bear with me, you'll see that it makes perfect sense. In general, products are allowed to be priced in a free market. That is to say, whoever can provide goods for the lowest price is the most successful. However, there are certain types of goods that we don't allow to go to the free market. In many countries, these are goods like tobacco and alcohol. These goods are subject to a repricing tax, which is used to discourage people from using the product. Also, these repricing taxes will offset the future medical costs with the people who use tobacco and alcohol excessively.
You now have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the discussion and answer questions 27 to 30.
Very well. Do you favour higher or lower taxes?
I am a strong proponent of taxes. The reason for this is simply that it is easier to make money when you already have money. This gives a massive advantage to those people who may have inherited money or come from rich families, because money is so much easier to gain for these people if used wisely. Taxing them seems only fair and for the greater good. This compensates the poorer sections of society who really have no hope to gain financial success.
I understand Dr. Tatham's position, but one has to be wary of the fact that if taxes are then those businesses will leave the country in favour of countries with lower taxes. Of course, it would be nice if we could legislate a worldwide tax structure, but this is simply not attainable. And I'm sure by the time it becomes attainable, companies will likely have opportunities to leave for another planet with more favourable tax structure.
Yes, you're right, Dr. McPhee. We must always be mindful of staying competitive. It is like a tightrope we must walk between compensating those less fortunate and being able to stay competitive in the market. Because if we fail to be competitive, then tax revenue will dry up, resulting in no money at all for the lower economic classes. So this is an extremely difficult balancing act.
Which leads to my next question. What is the future of taxation?
I believe you will see higher taxes in 50 years than there are today, just as we have higher taxes today than 50 years ago. We will need even more money for projects like high-speed transit, new roads, new technologies. Also, with an ageing population, medical costs could soar in the near future, resulting in higher taxes to support this healthcare system.
I think the future will be a lot like the present, walking the tightrope as Dr. Tatham mentioned. Where that takes us, I'm not sure. If I had to guess, I'd say higher taxes for the reasons Dr. Tatham outlined. However, another important variable to consider is whether free markets can really be allowed.
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
Okay, students, so there's a section 3 about taxes. Let's just stop the audio there and let's go through the answers together, see how you did. Here we go with question 21 to 23. It's no more than 2 words and or a number. So this is short answers. Okay. All right. It sounds like some of you are having problems with the audio. Was everybody having problem with the audio? That wasn't on my end. Unfortunately, that might be the streaming for YouTube. Okay. I could do something kind of different this time if you want. You can have a second chance, so I can try to replay the audio. Hopefully it will be better. Again, this is partly technology. There's not much I can do on my end. I'm definitely using good technology. So let's do it one more time then. Sometimes it's a good idea to listen twice, see how much better you can do a second time around. Keep both of your answers. So if you were able to answer the first time around well, you think, keep both answers, see what happens, see if you change your answers after. Okay, so I'll play the audio one more time. Why not? Let's do this. I've never done this before, but it is good practice to do this at home. So I'll play the audio one more time. If it's cracking, let's just keep in mind that at least you have 2 chances. Again, everything's good on my side, so can't do much if YouTube's not streaming properly. That's on them. So here we go. Back to the beginning. And ready, set, let's do it.
Take some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Listening section 3. You will hear a public forum discussion between the moderator and 2 contributors, Dr. Philip McPhee and Dr. Ron Tatum, both political scientists at the local university, talking about the nature of taxes in society. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
First of all, I would like to thank Dr. McPhee and Dr. Tatum for taking time out of their busy lives to spend this evening with us.
Thank you for having us.
Dr. McPhee, could you give us a little bit of the history of taxation?
Certainly. Taxes have been around almost as long as civilization itself. There are records of taxes being collected by Egyptian pharaohs approximately 5,000 years ago. It was customary to give 20% of your production to the pharaoh, and those who evaded taxes were severely punished.
Dr. Tatum, what are the reasons for taxes?
Well, there are essentially 3 major reasons for taxes. The first and most obvious reason is revenue. Governments need money, and taxes fulfill this need. The government then spends this tax revenue on investments that are good for society, such as healthcare, schools and roads. Funding the army would fall under this category as well. The second reason for taxation is for the redistribution of wealth. In simpler terms, this means taking money from the rich and giving it to the poor. Many societies do this out of a belief that it is the responsibility of the government to look after the poor people in society. I'll let Dr. McPhee talk about the final reason for taxation, called repricing.
Thank you, Dr. Tatum. Yes, the third main reason for taxation is called repricing, and by this we mean changing the price of a product to a different, generally higher price. This may sound quite strange, but if you bear with me, you'll see that it makes perfect sense. In general, products are allowed to be priced in a free market. That is to say, whoever can provide goods for the lowest price is the most successful. However, there are certain types of goods that we don't allow to go to the free market. In many countries, these are goods like tobacco and alcohol. These goods are subject to a repricing tax, which is used to discourage people from using the product. Also, these repricing taxes help offset the future medical costs associated with the people who use tobacco and alcohol excessively.
You now have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the discussion and answer questions 27 to 30.
Very well. Do you favour higher or lower taxes?
I am a strong proponent of higher taxes. The reason for this is simply that it is easier to make money when you already have money. This gives a massive advantage to those people who may have inherited money or come from rich families, because money is so much easier to gain for these people if used wisely. Taxing them seems only fair and for the greater good. This compensates the poorer sections of society who really have little or no hope to gain financial success.
I understand Dr. Tatham's position, but one has to be wary of the fact that if taxes are too high for businesses, then those businesses will leave the country in favour of countries with lower taxes. Of course, it would be nice if we could legislate a worldwide tax structure, but this is simply not attainable. And I'm sure by the time it becomes attainable, companies will likely have opportunities to leave for another planet with more favourable tax structure.
Yes, you're right, Dr. McPhee. We must always be mindful of staying competitive. It is like a tightrope we must walk between compensating those less fortunate and being able to stay competitive in the market. Because if we fail to be competitive, then tax revenue will dry up, resulting in no money at all for the lower economic classes. So this is an extremely difficult balancing act.
Which leads to my next question. What is the future of taxation?
I believe you will see higher taxes in 50 years than there are today, just as we have higher taxes today than 50 years ago. We will need even more money for projects like high-speed transit, new roads, new technologies. Also, with an ageing population, medical costs could soar in the near future, resulting in higher taxes to support this healthcare system.
I think the future will be a lot like the present, walking the tightrope as Dr. Tatham mentioned. Where that takes us, I'm not sure. If I had to guess, I'd say higher taxes for the reasons Dr. Tatham outlined. However, another important variable to consider is whether free markets can really be allowed.
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
All right, students, so let's go through the answer. Now, was the audio better this time than last time? Let's go and look at question 21. All right, good. I'm happy that that was better. Thank you for responding. All right, yeah, it was probably something interfering with the stream. Maybe some bad weather or some kind of a connection. Anyway, I'm happy that worked the second time. By the way, students, it is a good idea when you're practicing for the exam at home to listen twice, even 3 times, especially with audio that you find difficult, to just train your ears. So don't keep jumping from one exam to another without really getting into a deeper understanding of a listening section. All right, so let's do this together. Number 21, if an Egyptian's income was 10,000, how much would be given to the pharaoh? What's the correct answer for 21? Okay, this is called an inference type question. So you have to do a little bit of math. Okay. So an inference type question means that it's 20% of 10,000. So the correct answer here is 2,000. Okay. 20%, no, they will probably not take that, okay? Because then you don't need this number. So the question is, if an Egyptian was 10,000, how much would be given to the pharaoh? 20% of 10,000 is 2,000. It's an inference type question, careful, okay? So you have to pay just as much attention to the questions as you do to the audio. The first reason mentioned for taxes is what? Amandeep very quickly says the first reason for that is revenue. Yep, revenue means income for the government. Absolutely. You can write it all capital letters. You can write it all lowercase letters. You don't need to capitalize the R here. It's a common noun. Okay. The second reason for taxes, what is that known as? You heard it twice. So taking money from the rich and giving it to the poor. Jimmy Kim says it's redistribution. Yeah, redistribution means that you take some item and then you give it out again. So it's redistribution. Very good. Okay, the prefix is re, which means again. The suffix is shun, which means it's a noun. And the root is distribute. Okay, so it's redistribution. Absolutely. Learn your prefixes especially to help you. All right? Prefixes can give you a good idea of the meaning of words. All right, so then we had a flowchart type question for 24 to 26, the last two questions. And this one was talking about the third reason for taxes. So you have a product, and the product is something which is allowed to go to the free market. What type of product is allowed to go to the free market? So what's the answer for number 24? Okay, number 24, according to Sugandhika Kare, is E, general goods. And yeah, general goods are allowed to go to the free market. So most everything that we buy, you can just compete with freely. There's no special tax, goes to the market. 25, subject to some kind of a tax. So what is subject to some kind of a tax? Is it revenue? That doesn't make sense. Is it alcohol? Well, especially for those people who live in countries where alcohol is sold, you will know that prices are always different because alcohol has a special kind of tax. So B is okay. Now, make sure, Jimmy Kim, that you are putting the letter and not the word into the space in your answer sheet. So for 25, make sure you put B correct. If you actually put the word alcohol, that'll be marked wrong. Okay? Even though it's a correct idea, the question asks write the correct letter. So careful. Subject to what kind of a tax for number 26? What kind of a tax? It's D, repricing tax. That's right. It's the third reason, right? So redistribution, that was the second. And then the speaker says, let's talk about the third. Okay? So here we go. So B, E, and D were the correct answers there. Now, you had a little bit of a time, a little chance to look at questions 27 to 30. And questions 27 to 29 was one complex multiple choice question, okay? The order doesn't matter for this type of question. You just need the correct letters. So which three of the following are given as arguments in favor of lower taxes? Now, careful, the first professor was talking about reasons for higher taxes, so the benefit of having higher taxes. So what are some reasons for having lower taxes? A, it's easier to make money when you're already rich. No, that would be in favor of higher taxes, right? So you really have to pay attention to this part. Okay. So A, definitely not, because that's argument in favor of higher taxes. If you have lots of money, then it's easier to make money, so you should pay more tax. So businesses will leave the country if taxed too harshly. Is that true? So do we want lower taxes so businesses don't leave? Logic will help you. Yes, absolutely. That's one of the right ones. C, inheriting money requires no hard work. Again, that's connected more to A, so no. D, a country must be able to stay competitive in the global market. That seems correct. There was quite a bit of argument for that one. A worldwide tax structure can be implemented? Absolutely not. Come on, ladies and gents. That's not realistic. Not in our lifetime. Can you imagine a worldwide tax structure? Wow, that would really change the entire planet. But definitely not going to happen. Maybe in the future, but not right now. They even joke about it. They even say, oh, by that time, there'll be other planets with different tax structures, right? So not E. Then it must be F. Lower taxes in the end up benefiting everyone, including the poor. Why? Because businesses stay competitive and people have jobs, right? So the correct answers in any order were B, D, and F. Now, if that was difficult for you or confusing, what should you do? So what should you do if that was like, oh, that question was really tough? Vanessa, you don't need to have the correct letters to get the full score because it's 3 questions. So Vanessa, here you have 27, 28, 29. So here, if you have A, B, and D, then you'd still pick up 2 marks for that one because it's 3, right? So Amar says use logic. When you're studying at home, so yes, Amar, yes, Hikmatil, logic would help you in the exam, as I mentioned yesterday. And if you are studying at home, then what you need to do is you need to check the transcripts and see what happened. And I believe the transcripts are here. Yes. So in our books, in the back of the book, you're always able to read where the questions are coming from. So if you have our premium package at aehelp.com or gieltshelp.com, make sure that you're looking at these transcripts as well. So Dr. Tatum says, yes, you're right, Dr. McPhee. We must always be mindful of staying competitive. So staying competitive was D, I believe, if I remember correctly. Okay. It is like a tightrope we must walk between compensating those less fortunate and being able to stay competitive in the market. Because if we fail to be competitive, then tax revenue will dry up, resulting in no money at all for lower economic classes. So this is the inverse that explains that people of all economic situations benefit from lower taxes because there's business. Okay. So, and the final answer is coming from here. One has to be wary of the fact that if taxes are too high for businesses, then those businesses will leave the country in favor of countries with lower taxes. Okay? So that's where your answers came from. Whenever you're lost, if you don't know where answers are coming from, check the transcripts. All right. So one last question. Question 30. I think this one was a little bit of a simpler question after that more difficult 27, 8, and 9. What do the speakers believe about taxes in the future? They stay the same? They will be lower? They will be higher? A, B, or C? Navjeet, Warfin, Hikmatillo, Dry Prune, Sugandhika, Anil, Hikmatillo, Nishta, they're all saying C. Carolina says C. Yeah, that was C. So they will be higher. Both speakers say, oh yeah, they're going to be higher. Why? Anybody remember the reasons? when you're practicing listening at home, above and beyond just the questions in the exam, especially if you're doing it in groups, like in an IELTS class, challenge each other with extra questions, such as why? Why do the speakers think that taxes will be higher in the future? There are a couple reasons that they give, and you never know what part of the information will be used on question sheets till you're in the exam. So bonus point. Massimo says the increased cost of infrastructure, so infrastructure, roads, and so on will be more expensive, demanding more money. Yes, Massimo, they say that, absolutely. Okay, and what else? What is the other reason? There's one other reason that they very clearly emphasize. Yes, that's right, Massimo, the cost of healthcare. So the speakers say there's an aging population and the cost of healthcare will increase. Students, visualize the information that you hear. All right, let's go right into section 4. Going to just hop back to our website here. Again, don't put your answers in the chat until the end. Wait for everyone, and then we'll go over the answers together. Hopefully the audio will be good. And again, section 4 is the most challenging. Here we go with section 4.
Now turn to section 4. Take some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Listening section 4. You will hear a lecture about English scientist Isaac Newton. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Today we are going to discuss the life and achievements of the famous English scientist Sir Isaac Newton. Many consider Newton to be the most brilliant man to have ever lived, and many consider his achievements the greatest ever achieved by one man. Newton himself was not so sure, as he famously told his followers, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." While it may be true that he built upon the foundation of scientists before him, he still managed to see further than anyone else had, and to this day his accomplishments stand the test of time. Isaac Newton was born in England in 1643. He studied at the King's School in Grantham from age 12 to 17. After leaving school, his mother tried to make him into a farmer, but that was not going to be sufficient for young Isaac. A year later, in 1661, on the recommendation of one of his teachers at the King's School in Grantham, Newton was admitted to Trinity College in Cambridge, where he eventually became a teacher 6 years later. Newton is perhaps most famous for his work on gravity. A well-known story says that Newton realized the nature of gravity while he was sitting under a tree and an apple fell on his head. This story may or may not be true, but the underlying principle is valuable. The astonishing discovery, the same force that makes an apple fall to the earth also makes the earth revolve around the sun and the moon revolve around the earth. Until this time, scientists such as René Descartes and Gottfried Leibniz had believed that the planets moved in some sort of matter, something they called an ether. Newton demonstrated that no such ether was required. Descartes and Leibniz also had little explanation for why apples fall to the earth. Newton's theory accounted for this almost perfectly. During the 20th century, Newton's theory came under attack by the German physicist Albert Einstein, whose theory of relativity was said to replace Newton's theory of gravitation. This is simply not true. Einstein's theory is a landmark achievement in science, but it did not replace Newton's theory, it merely improved it. To picture this, think of a smooth ball, perhaps a billiard ball. In this experiment of the mind, Newton tells us that the ball is smooth. However, Einstein says that the ball has small imperfections, dents, cuts, and scrapes. Who is right? The answer is both of them. Newton is correct on a macroscopic scale. When we look at the ball from a distance, the ball is smooth. However, Einstein is correct as well. The ball does have imperfections. He is correct on a macroscopic and a microscopic scale. Another of Newton's important achievements is the reflecting telescope. Previously, Galileo had used lenses to construct his telescope, but Newton was the first to use mirrors in a telescope. Today's telescopes are almost all made of mirrors as opposed to lenses, which again speaks to Newton's brilliance. There are a number of reasons the mirror is an improvement over the lens in telescopes. First, mirrors do not warp as easily as lenses do, and by that I mean that lenses can lose their shape in hot or cold weather quite easily. Second, telescopes with mirrors take up less space because of their shorter focal distance. Third, telescopes with mirrors can be built far larger because the mirrors themselves can be built larger. An achievement of Newton's that must not be overlooked is Newton's discovery of calculus. Although the discovery was not without controversy, Gottfried Leibniz also claims to have invented calculus at approximately the same time. Nobody really knows the truth, but it is accepted that they discovered it separately. In any case, it was a brilliant achievement by both scientists. Newton died in March 1727, and his body was laid to rest at Westminster Abbey in London, in a famous above-ground tomb. He was 84.
That is the end of section 4. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
And again, make sure to check your answers in that half minute, and then you have another 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. Okay, students, the amazing life of Sir Isaac Newton, a British fellow who was knighted, of course, for his achievements and contributions to humanity. Isaac Newton was born in 1643, and the flow chart will tell the rest of his tale. Let's go one at a time. So, studies at King's School in Grantham from the age of what to what? Now, this is one question. Pay attention, students. It's just question number 31, so you have to put the two numbers into the space. Sugandhika, that's correct, yeah, and you can do it with a dash as well. So in this case, when you have blank 31, then you can put 12, 17 or 12-17. Both are okay. Don't write the word to, because that will count as a word, and then you'll get it wrong. I know that's kind of unfair, but that's the way it is, okay? So don't write the word to, it's included in the question. The best is just to use a comma. You have to really pay attention to the instructions, 2 words, okay? So don't write the word to, because then you have 2 numbers and a word, which is 3 elements. Okay, number 32, leave school. Mother wants to make Newton what? Mom was not too over enthusiastic about Newton's desire for books, maybe. Mom wants to make Newton into a farmer. That's right. So wants to make Newton into a farmer. Not a father, a farmer. Okay, farmer. Wants to make him into a farmer. Agriculture. Yeah, very good. Okay, and in 1961, so going along, really pay attention to these key numbers so that you stay with the audio. On the recommendation of his teachers, he's admitted to Trinity College in Cambridge. 6 years after beginning, Newton becomes what? So he becomes, a teacher. It's quite amazing. Teaching at Cambridge. Becomes a teacher there. Very good. There's a little bit of interesting paraphrasing reversal. Small t, it's proper, or it's a common noun, not a proper noun. Okay, here we go. Let's keep moving along. No stopping in section 4. It's one seamless audio. Now, notice how I spent a little bit more time here. So, students, when you're doing the exam, observe which questions require more thinking. So when it says you have some time to review the questions in section 4, if you see this kind of a question, be really careful. Spend a little bit more time looking at it, figuring out what is happening, what's the information. These do not come in order. For this type of question where you have to match the person to the event or to the action, these do not come in order, either in the listening or in the reading. And many students find these very difficult because they're not in the order of the audio or the reading passage in the reading section. So spend more time practicing these. Okay. All right. So number 34, believed that planets moved in an ether. A, B, C, or D. Dry Prune says, I'm pretty sure that's C. It was Descartes, René Descartes, and Gottfried Leibniz. Leibniz, German, if I remember correctly. Descartes, French. Okay, so it was Descartes and Leibniz. They thought the planets and objects move in some kind of a liquid. They're not completely off. There are particles between all objects. So here we go, 35. Oh, maybe space not. There's dead matter, antimatter. Anyway, I'm not a physicist. 35, developed a theory which was thought to replace the earlier theory of gravity. Use your logic. These guys came first. First, second, third, fourth. Newton came up with gravity. So clearly it had to have been, there's only one choice here that would make sense for number 35. And that's Einstein, So Einstein's theory of relativity was thought to replace the theory of gravity. Okay, in the experiment of the mind, it tells us that the billiard ball is smooth. So who tells us that the ball is smooth for number 36 in the experiment of the mind? Because he sees the billiard ball on a macroscopic scale, right? It's like looking at planet Earth from the moon. Earth looks smooth. And that would have been Newton, that's right. While Einstein believes that, hey, it's not a smooth ball, but it's got scrapes and dents and scratches. It's looking at a microscopic scale more closely. Okay, 37, used not mirrors but lenses in the construction of the telescope. Last one, number 37. Yeah, that was Galileo, okay? Always be careful. So not mirrors, but lenses. And Galileo, another brilliant man from Italy, used lenses to build telescopes and explore the universe. Fantastic. Okay, so C, D, B, and A. Very good. Few more to go. This was a short summary completion type question here. Again, use no more than 2 words and or a number. Telescopes with lenses cannot be built as large as telescopes with mirrors because large lenses tend to do something. So this has to be maybe a verb in here. What kind of a verb? So Sugandika says lose shape. Yeah, that would be okay. Tend to lose shape. So there's your verb, to lose. Or there's another correct answer for this one. Nidhe, that's good, but careful with your spelling. Okay, it's just warp. Warp. W-A-R-P. Warp. There's no E on the end. It's just warp. W-A-R-P. Not rap, Nidhe. Warp. W-A-R-P. Okay, that's it. All right, telescopes with mirrors take up less space because of their reduced what? That was a two-word answer, one of the more challenging questions in this section 4. Let's see if anybody got that. Sugandhika, Crane, very good. Yeah, their reduced focal distance. That's right. So reduced focal distance. Nicely done for Hikmatillo as well. You got that. You need both words. Focal, coming from the word focus, and focal distance. Okay, so for those of you who have cameras, DSLR cameras, you know, when you have your focal distance, the setting, how far the lens extends out. Okay, so lose shape, warp, focal distance. One more question to go in this listening exam. Question 40. Choose the correct letter, A, B, or C. Which statement is true? A. Newton and Leibniz discovered calculus together. B. Newton and Leibniz discovered calculus separately during the same time. C. Newton and Leibniz discovered calculus separately while working at the same university. That one really seems funny. Let's take that out. The correct answer is B. Very good for all those students who are choosing B. In the answer sheet, you put B and you get it correct. Use the capital letter. That's fantastic. Great job. Very good focus for a lot of students. Count up your scores, especially for those of you who were in yesterday's class, and give me your score out of 40. So what did you get from 40? I'll tell you what band score you could expect. On our website, for those of you who have access to our academic or general IELTS website, at the bottom of the website, you have what's called a score calculator. Okay, there it is. The very, very bottom, score calculator. Open that up. And then if you are Amandeep, what you can do is you can put your listening score in here. Amandeep got 37. Shabam. That's 8.5. That's very good, Amandeep. Arthi, yes, it's case sensitive in the listening section, but you can use all capital letters. Hikmatillo got 29. Let's check that out. Hikmatillo, 29 is a 6.5. It's not bad. Just keep working on it. Okay, it's in the upper ones. Bobin, Thapa got 35. 35 is a band 8. Okay, Nidhe, band 8 for 35. Let me erase that giant B and then you'll see it better. I don't know if you're... There it is. So it's an 8. I can zoom in even more so you can see the numbers. So 35. Below that, it's the reading, so don't pay attention to that one. All right. Arshay got 32 and Rakib got 31. 32 is a band 7.5. 31 is a band 7. Okay, 31 is a band 7. Preet, 32, 7.5. Okay. Navjeet, 29, 6.5. So 7 is a very narrow field. Okay. All right, students, if you haven't joined our premium package yet, you can do so at aehelp.com. For those of you who are taking IELTS in Saudi Arabia, you can register your IELTS exam through us. We are partners with British Council as well as a registration test center. And if you are studying for the general version of the test, join us at gieltshelp.com and click that big red button there to join. Students, that's it for me for today. If you have questions and I missed it, tomorrow we'll have a Q&A session for members, and you can always send me questions to my email, adrian@aehelp.com, and I'll be happy to answer those for you. All right, everyone. Have an awesome rest of your day. We have more classes coming up tomorrow. We will have a Q&A session for members, and we will have a speaking part 3 practice for everyone to chat. That is it for now. Sweet dreams if it's late in your country, and much love to all of you. See you tomorrow.